This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we are currently being recorded.
Okay, very good. So we should assume that everyone is on the audio is being muted so we can start the meeting, correct, Casey?
That is correct.
Okay, very good. All right. Hello, everybody. This evening's West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting for April 21st, 2020 will start. This will be the first time we're utilizing teleconferencing in order to have our residents be able to participate. This will be our first walkthrough, so we ask for your support in allowing us to make adjustments as we get through the process to ensure that we get through the agenda, but that we also have ample opportunity to have all of our items that we need to address this evening to be able to have public comment and also end of meeting public comment for items that are not on the agenda. So as we do, as a normal part of every one of our meetings, we say the Pledge of Allegiance. You're welcome to sit, stand, but certainly put your hand over your heart, and I'll go ahead and get started. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, nation,
God, visible, liberty, justice for all. We'll work on synchronizing that for next time. Thank you so much for participating. The next item on the agenda is for us to take a moment of silence regarding the impact that the COVID-19 crisis has had on our loved ones. Sadly, we have had several people in West Goshen Township as well as in the county who have lost their lives during the pandemic. And we send out our heartfelt thoughts and prayers for those families who are dealing with the aftermath. Thank you for taking the moment to think about the people who've been lost. So I'm going to give you an overview of the teleconference meeting rules of conduct, just so that we can make sure anyone and everyone who's interested in public comment this evening will just need to be a little bit strategic in planning on who can speak in which order. Lisa Cavada is helping to work to ensure that individuals who want to speak during public comment on either any of the agenda items or the final public comment, that she be in a position to make the chair aware of who is going to be speaking, and that person would then be acknowledged by the chair and then could share their public comment. So at the beginning of the meeting, we will take a roll call for members, staff, and professional service providers present. A roll call of those members of the public present on the teleconference. Each person speaking shall announce their identity at the beginning of their comments. Public comment will be permitted only when specifically requested of the public just before each vote is taken or at the end of the meeting before adjournment. Each item requiring a vote will proceed with a motion and a second, followed first by member comments and questions, only when prompted by the chair, and then second by public comments and questions, but only when prompted by the chair. That's put in place so that we have the ability to ensure that each person who speaks is not interrupted by other speakers. Voting shall be done by roll call for each member for each vote. Okay, moving to item number 4, reports for the month of March 2020, presented by Chief Joe Gleason.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. Can everyone hear me? Or
yes.
Can someone hear me? Okay.
Yep,
you're
good. Go ahead.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to give 2-month recap, obviously, because we missed the March meeting. So for February, the West Goshen Police responded to 1,736 calls for service. We responded to 36 alarms, one of which was valid. We investigated 15 reportable motor vehicle accidents and 51 non-reportable motor vehicle accidents. And we logged 23,564 miles in our patrol vehicles. In addition to other locations, selective enforcement was active on South New Street, Trinity Drive, Falcon Lane, Glen Avenue, Grove Road, and South Five Points Road. And our career development continued with our emergency response team during their monthly training, along with our hostage negotiation training. We did a street survival, which we do officers every year on a solid rotation, and we've been doing that now for the past 8 years. And then Sergeant Greiser attended a motor carrier inspection update training. For the month of March, we handled 1,657 calls for service. We responded to 49 alarms, 3 of which were valid, investigated 16 reportable motor vehicle accidents, and 27 non-reportable motor vehicle accidents, and we logged 19,829 miles on our patrol vehicles. Now, given the fact that effective mid-March, we're all aware that we had that bomb incident on March 8th, and that was the West Goshen Police Department's introduction to the COVID-19. For the first half of the month, our selective enforcement was active in the areas of Sunset Hollow Road, Montgomery Avenue, Ellis Lane, and Goshen Road. But as a result of our experience with COVID, we have since relaxed our progressive enforcement. We sit in areas, but we're not seriously interacting with the public as we normally would for obvious reasons. And our career development for the first half, again, we terminated all training as of March 18th, I believe it was, or I think it was the 14th. But prior to that, our emergency response team did our monthly training. Sergeant Cotter attended the Command and Leadership Academy. Detective Taylor attended an advanced homicide and violent crimes investigation course, and Detective Edwards attended facial recognition training. As a quick note, I would just like to express the department's sincere appreciation to all those that have reached out to us in support of materials, food. Those officers, when they were quarantined for the 2 weeks, several people had reached out to us to make sure that they were okay, and I just wanted to express our appreciation. Obviously, as a result of this, we have established our agency in a situation where we're, I think, better equipped for the long-term sustainability as COVID continues on. So with that, I'll close and mute my phone unless there's any questions for me. Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. Next item on the agenda, item number 5, is Board of Supervisors announcements. Mr. will go first. It looks like Sean's still on mute. There he goes.
Here I am. Thank you, Robin. Sorry about that. Am I good, Casey? Everybody can hear me?
Loud and clear.
Very good.
Sound great.
Thank you. I have 2 announcements tonight. The first one is a statement on behalf of the Board of Supervisors regarding an increase in the overall overtime payments made to township employees that occurred during the 2-week period, March 16th to March 26th. The board has reviewed in an executive session the circumstances to that situation and wants to provide the following explanation of events. Back in early March, given the unprecedented circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic, the board had supported the disaster declaration for West Goshen Township and signed the document with an effective date of March the 12th. As Chief Gleason explained, there were 4 West Goshen police officers who were potentially exposed to an infected individual during the Arbor Square bomb threat response on March the 8th, and their subsequent interactions with others officers, staff, and township buildings, necessitated both a facility-wide deep cleaning and an assessment by department heads and township management on ways of working going forward. Additionally, the stay-at-home order from the Pennsylvania governor drove the need to close the township offices, initially through March 30th and later extended through April the 30th. Therefore, the immediate consideration was how to ensure the township, as your local government, could continue to provide its essential services to residents and businesses while doing so in a manner that employees could feel safe from infection and that also protected the public. A determination of how these services could best continue to be delivered was made by the township manager and the department heads in circumstances where quantities of PPE in terms of masks, etc., were initially limited. Therefore, for the police, public works, street and sewer, and parks employees, it was decided that splitting into 2 or more distinct teams on a rotating schedule could enable all critical work to continue. This would minimize the risk that a whole department could become exposed and quarantined that would jeopardize service delivery. During the 2-week pay period, March 16th to March 26th, paid on April the 2nd, there was a combination of emergency work, repairing a sewer line break, establishing new work patterns, for example, police dispatch coverage to now include weekends, and incentive pay as overtime for individuals to perform essential work in an uncertain environment, namely limited PPE availability, only early advice on social distancing needs, and recognizing employee concerns about the potential risk for COVID-19 exposure. The board recognizes that this was an initial period for the township to determine how to manage services in the pandemic crisis and represented a transition and learning curve on how to get essential service work performed. The board was made aware of the cost of the overtime incurred and has reviewed the initial practices and payments. The board supports the segregation of employees into separate rotating teams as a practical risk management approach that maximizes employee safety while minimizing service delivery risk. Therefore, this will incur some continuing overtime, for example, in police dispatch, due to the hours worked in excess of the normal 40-hour work week by employees, and possible overtime to deal with emergency situations that arise, for example, stormwater issues, sewer issues, and street repair needs. However, the board was not consulted beforehand and does not support use of overtime pay as an incentive to perform work, and this stopped as of March 26th. So that was a statement that the board asked we provide to township residents to explain the overtime that was worked back in March. During the public comment period at the end of the meeting, we'll be happy to take questions about that as residents may have any questions on it. My second announcement tonight is to inform the board and residents that the Sewer Authority has sought waivers and will expect to reinitiate the project work at the sewer plant that was temporarily stopped back in March. We now believe that we're in a position with the proper health and safety plan with our general contractor to recommence the work on our wastewater treatment plant phase 2 improvements, and I would expect that work to resume in the next week or two. In addition, we have also requested that our project this year to address critical infrastructure repairs on our interceptor lines also be approved for essential work services, and we believe that as a critical utility, a wastewater utility, that will not be a problem. So I just want to let you know that that work is expected to both restart in terms of the plan, and our project to replace the failing interceptor lines is also expected to go ahead once we get further along in the design process. So those are my announcements. Robin, back to you.
Thank you. Are there any other supervisors who would like to make announcements now?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Purnell, please do so.
First of all, this is the first meeting we've had since my wife Sheila passed away on 22nd February. I wanted to thank you, the chair, for your commendation of her service at the last meeting that we had. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to commend all of the West Goshen employees for their service during this rather trying environment of virus infections. I have a neighbor that's unfortunately infected, and it's a problem. So I appreciate our employees and the efforts that they're making to really keep the township running the way it has. Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you. Mr. Hellman or Ms. Gagne?
Yeah, is it okay if I go, John? I just want to say thank you as well to township staff. I think you're doing an excellent job. Obviously, as Sean stated, there were some issues that we encountered this month. Again, I think that this is sort of an unprecedented time. I want to send my well wishes to everyone in the township and just know that we are doing our best. We're here. Please feel free to reach out to us anytime with any questions you might have. And that's all I want to say right now. Thanks.
John, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yes, I do. I just want to echo what was just said as far as appreciation for our township employees. They truly are the most important asset we have as a township. So I just want to echo those sentiments. For myself, I had the opportunity to attend several seminars on the web, or webinars, offered by the Pennsylvania State Association of Township Supervisors. There were 6 of them in total, covering issues such as township purchasing. Another one was on cooperative purchasing. Another webinar was on public works. Another one was on ethics. And the final one was on planning and land use. There's very informative sessions offered by the association. There's a lot to learn. And fortunately, we have a great organization out there that's a great source of information available for us. Also, I'd like to bring up another issue. Just yesterday afternoon, Governor Wolf signed Act 15 of 2020, as formerly Senate Bill 841. This happened late yesterday afternoon. Act 15 of 2020 allows municipalities for the duration of a statewide emergency declaration to conduct business through telecommunication devices like we're doing right now, provided they allow all members to hear and make comments on issues and allow for public participation to the maximum extent available. Also, Act 15 freezes any and all applications that may be pending approval or deemed approval from the signing of the governor's emergency declaration and holds them for 30 days or until May the 20th. And the final item, which is of importance, and I would like the board to consider this, local governments are authorized to extend the discount period for local property taxes and to waive all fees and penalties associated with them, as long as the taxes are paid in full by December 31st, 2020. Right now, we're right in the midst of collecting our township taxes for property taxes, and we have a 2% discount, which is available for residents if they pay by April 30th. Face amount is due by June 30th, and 10% penalty after June the 30th. I would like the board to consider pushing back those dates until December 31st. I understand there's some concerns about how this may impact the finances, the revenue incoming into the township, but we also need to consider the the situation we're in and the concerns of our residents. A lot of folks are out of work and they don't have the income right now to be able to pay taxes like this. At least some may not. Maybe we could hear from Casey on where we're at, what our status is at, as far as how many folks have actually already paid their real estate taxes and taken advantage of the 2% discount that was available, and what impact we can possibly foresee it may have upon us if we push this back until the end of the year.
Yes, this is Casey, Township Manager. Just before the meeting, I spoke with Bill Keenan, the elected tax collector. As of today, April 21st, there are still 9 days left in that initial discount period of the 2% for real estate taxes. We have collected 70% of our overall real estate taxes already. And looking back for about 15, 20 years, we collect between 90 and 95% of our real estate taxes during the discount period. He also stated that if the board were to, for example, extend and not charge any penalty after July 1st, the hit to the budget would be only about $15,000.
So I'd like to make a recommendation that we table this evaluation of how to move forward by working with finance staff and perhaps even engaging Mr. Keenan to provide us some points of view, and then take it up again at the May meeting. Apparently we have another 15 days after our meeting, I believe, to have it concluded before the May 31st or 30th deadline.
This is
Robin,
John.
it's actually,
We have to check those dates, Robin. It may be May 20th that we have
It
to
is.
tell the tax collector of any change, but our next meeting is May 19th, so we could still meet that deadline if that's the case.
it is. May 20th is the day you have to have a resolution delivered to your tax collector in order to take advantage of the Act 15's provisions. And I just, point of clarification, the law allows you to extend the discount rate provided the taxes are paid on or before August 31st, 2020. And it allows you to waive the payment of interest and penalties as long as the taxes are paid in full by December 31st, 2020. And in order to do that, you have to pass a resolution, and the resolution must be delivered to your tax collector 30 days from the effective date of the act, which was yesterday. So 30 days is May 20th.
Very good. Thank you for that information. Okay, I just want to continue a little bit of the commentary related to the heroic efforts that so many in our community are putting forward to help during this crisis. And I wanted to thank the first responders and the medical employees and all of the auxiliary people who are involved in keeping these people from getting sick and hopefully keeping them out of the hospital and getting them home. I also do want to recognize our township employees, as they are essential employees because of the nature of the work that we do. We know that it's difficult for them to be coming back and forth into work, working among others, although they put some wonderful and very important steps into place so that people could be working with social distancing and, as Mr. Walsh described, groups of people that work together and then move to another group so that the township does not have a pandemic within just itself. But I want to thank the employees because I know for sure that the stress of worrying about your own health, your family's health, the people you come to work and see every day, that's an added layer of burden and expectation that each of us has about how we get through these situations. And what is true from my perspective is that this group of employees, they work together as a team, they take care of each other, and they're there for each other when they need help. And that's something that makes me very proud to be a part of that team. So thank all of you for all the work you've been doing. Okay, next item for discussion is item number 6, the township manager's announcements.
Thank you very much. Again, this is Casey, Township Manager. Although Sean already mentioned it we did hold an executive session on April 14th to discuss personnel. And I just want to read a brief statement I prepared just to give the audience an update of where we are as the township with what's been going on with the pandemic. I wish to take this opportunity to thank the Board of Supervisors for their support during this crisis, as well as the residents of West Goshen Township for their understanding and patience. The township offices closed on March 12th following the COVID-19 exposure of several township employees. Since the March 12th closure and the subsequent stay-at-home order from Governor Wolf, township employees of all departments have worked on-site or from home to ensure the efficient and effective delivery of township services. Emergency Management Coordinator Andrea Testa works endlessly every day to obtain personal protective equipment for the various first responder organizations that serve the township. As of today, West Goshen Township has 34 confirmed cases of COVID-19 out of a total of 934 cases in Chester County. Thankfully, none of the 49 deaths throughout the county have occurred in West Goshen. The COVID-19 crisis has caused the township to change how it delivers services, as it has forced township staff to work in separate groups to minimize contamination. The township has closed the dog park, skate park, tennis courts, basketball courts, and playgrounds in an effort to minimize community spread of the virus. The parks and trails are still open, and we strongly recommend practicing social distancing and the wearing of masks to minimize the spread. Township staff are carefully monitoring the budget, as impacts from the virtual shutdown of most economic activity may have an impact on the township's tax collections. However, through March 31st, real estate tax, earned income tax, and local services tax collections are at or above budget. The real impact to revenues may be seen in April, so staff will be tasked with identifying carefully targeted budget cuts and will work with the Board of Supervisors on those cuts as necessary. However, some expenses are down, such as fuel, as its use is down, and the township is currently paying less than $1 per gallon of gasoline. Electricity use is down as well, but the April invoices will show us to what extent. Also, with this unusually warm winter, the winter maintenance budget of $235,000 was almost untouched, with only $28,000 in expenses year to date. As Governor Wolf has extended the stay-at-home order until May 8th, township staff are working on plans to reopen the office to all employees and the public. However, the public will not be invited into the township building until I can ensure the safety of our employees. I want to again thank the Board of Supervisors and West Goshen Township residents and business owners during this critical time. And finally, my many thanks to the dedicated West Goshen Township employees who show up every day risking life and limb to keep the township operational. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Mr. Craig, Township Engineers Stormwater Announcements and Woodlands and Greystone Update.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We continue to handle stormwater management complaints as to be considered emergencies. So as they come in, they're being handled on a daily basis. We did receive today from DEP a review of our 2018 annual MS4 stormwater report. Turned out it was a generic letter with no specifics at all regarding our report. So not particularly helpful, but it was received. And as far as Greystone, all construction work at the present time has ceased at Greystone. However, we have been advised by Alan Myers, one of the contractors, that they have received a waiver from the Pennsylvania state government to proceed with the Dam 181 work, and they intend to begin that work on May the 4th. So that work will be commencing under a waiver and will be inspected by both the township and consultant forces as it proceeds. And that concludes my comments. Thank you, Eric.
Madam Chairwoman, if I may, I just wanted to add one more point about Greystone. An electrical contractor did start work on the signals at 322 and Phoenixville Pike. I actually drove through there today, and there was a small excavator working. So that's part of the Greystone project, is to improve that intersection. And they're apparently doing some preliminary work on that as we speak. So you'll see some action in there. I think they actually started yesterday. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Robin, I have a question here. This is John Hellman.
Yes.
Rick, could you give us the status of the Ravens Lane sewer line there, that sewer drain, and does it present a imminent danger at this time?
We're working with our consultant, Carroll Engineering, to evaluate the situation at Ravens Lane. Although we have had some minor sinkholes inside yards of a couple residences, there has been no damage to any roadways or any impacts anywhere near any structures. So at this point, we do not have any emergency issues with that stormwater system. However, it is in very poor condition and is going to require remediation very soon to prevent any possibility of damages that might cause a hazard to the public.
Can I ask about the North Hill project? I was down to, am I on?
We can hear you.
Okay. I was down to see the North Hill project there. And I noticed, talking to Mark, that the erosion on what would be the south bank had actually hurt or damaged the area behind the wing wall on the bridge there, or culvert, whatever you call it, and that they had put in extra stone there. That's appreciated. But it obviously was a preventive measure, I guess, an emergency even, considering that erosion was getting pretty severe. I had not noticed that before, but obviously the guys working down there noticed it. So I don't know whether there's a further report on that or not.
As far as the erosion adjacent to the culvert, we did find that to be a problem when we got down there and started the construction. In addition to the area around the culvert, there was also increased erosion directly opposite of the proposed spillway location. So we added additional riprap both at the culvert and on the south side of the stream embankment, down beyond the location of the spillway, to avoid any further erosion problems in the future, and especially with the implementation of the spillway. So we were able to get the riprap scour protection in there, and it was grouted yesterday, and should be very effective in stabilizing both the culvert wing wall and the stream embankment to allow the spillway project to be effective.
Okay, thanks, Rick.
Okay, moving on. Webb, zoning officer's announcements.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Bill Webb, West Goshen Township Zoning Officer. Wanted to let everyone know that I had never been to a conference during the start of the pandemic and never want to go to a conference at the start of the pandemic again. I attended EduCode along with John Beswick. Very, very good educational opportunity. Came back with almost 40 continuing ed credits for my licenses along with John. We continue to have a surge, surprisingly, in apartment inspections. Even though they're limited to emergency inspections, we're not in the position to determine what's emergency and what's not. So as one person in the apartment industry said, we're in a free society, people can move when they want. So we've had a number of inspections. So I've been very busy with that. We continue to receive property maintenance complaints. I'm giving people my cell phone and communicating from home, and I'm still coming into the office a few days a week to do inspections and do paperwork, so I don't have a backlog. But that's all I have this evening. Stay well, everyone.
Thank you. You too. Okay, item number 9. Discussion of possible approval of ordinance number 1-2020, amendment to zoning code for 940 South Walnut Street.
Thank you. This is Kristen Camp. I will handle this. Mr. Simler is the resident that owns the property at 940 South Walnut Street. That property is zoned commercial, C3 limited highway. He had requested the township consider rezoning it to be R3 residential, so it's consistent with the adjoining residential. The property is actually split. It is the township municipal boundary between West Goshen and Westtown Township. The board had previously agreed that they would be willing to rezone this property. We adhere to all the procedural requirements in order to do so. This was slated to be held or heard in a public hearing on March 17th. Obviously, a March 17th meeting was canceled, and therefore the board agreed to put this back onto the agenda for tonight's consideration. Again, it was requested by the property owner. The property was posted. The County Planning Commission reviewed the proposed rezoning and issued a review letter to the board dated February 11th, 2020. Your own Planning Commission reviewed the ordinance and recommended that the board adopt the amendment. And as I can verify that we did follow all the mandatory requirements under the municipality's planning code for you to consider this rezoning.
Any comments, John, from the Planning Commission? Did you sit in on that discussion?
Well, Danny, I want to say that this is a no-brainer. I mean, this individual there, this property is bisected by Westtown and West Goshen, and he's in a commercial district, and it was just a mistake, really. And this is just something we need to correct. And I'd like to make a motion that we go ahead and do this.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any public comment?
Oh, yes, Doug White here, public comment. I'm in agreement for approval. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you. Lisa, any other public comment?
Actually, Robin, this is Sean. I have a comment or a question for Kristen regarding the information that was put out around the March 17th date and the fact that that meeting was actually canceled. Was there any requirement that we should have re-advertised that this decision about the ordinance change was being made tonight?
Sean, I would, if it was an ordinance that had, significant and massive changes that I thought people were going to challenge, I probably would have done that in an abundance of caution. But I think with the fact that you had your declaration of emergency and the fact that the property owner is advocating for this change, and the fact that it was very clear that the ordinance hearing or the meeting on the 17th had been postponed or continued until tonight, I was comfortable moving ahead with it as we have done for tonight.
Okay, thank you.
I just have one question as well. Looking at the letter that the county sent to the board on February 11th, and at the very end, number 6, it says, if West Goshen Township decides to proceed with the rezoning, the township should consider also revising their comprehensive plan to create consistency. So is that something, is that something that the board thinks that maybe we should look at?
It's the only part of the comprehensive plan that may not be consistent would be mapping that's contained within the plan. There's probably nothing that's specific to this particular property. It probably shows up maybe on several different maps within your comprehensive plan. The process to amend your comprehensive plan is rather, I wouldn't say arduous, but there are a lot of procedural requirements and it would probably be somewhat expensive. So what I would suggest that you might want to do is just sort of keep a running tab that we keep track of. And as the additional edits would be needed to your comprehensive plan, maybe like the end of each year, you take a look at that and determine whether it makes sense to spend the money to do that.
Thank you, both Ashley and Kristen. Any other comments, Lisa, that we have any other folks who want to speak to this item?
Well, the only person we have is Doug. If anybody wants to speak, turn your microphone on. I can see you and then I'll call your name out after Doug gets done speaking.
Okay, I think Doug did make his comment and he's already off. Anybody
Okay,
else
good.
who would like to have a comment? All right, hearing none. With a motion and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We need to do a roll call, so I will start. Robin says aye.
John Hammond says aye.
Hughes says aye.
Ashley?
Ashley says aye.
Sean?
John says aye.
Okay. So we
Okay,
have,
very good. Thank you.
okay, thank you all. Okay, the next item for discussion, the ratification of amended township disaster declaration. Mr. Lalonde, I assume you're speaking to that, or is Ms. Camp?
Yeah, we can both speak to it. The board obviously authorized the initial disaster declaration on March 12th. Then we received guidance. And Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would have had to essentially reapprove this every 7 days ongoing. And no one knew how long this was going to go on. So the amendment for the ratification extends it until the board revokes the disaster declaration. So instead of having to essentially have a meeting almost every 7 days to do this, it just extends the original disaster declaration. And not in perpetuity, we don't mean it by that, but just until the disaster is revoked, essentially. So we don't have to do this every 7 days. Kristen, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, there's been a lot of different interpretations of the Emergency Management Act and whether or not the original declaration can only be valid for 7 days. I read the act to say as long as the board, a majority of the board, ratifies the declaration and determines that it should be for a period longer than 7 days, then that's appropriate. That's within your power. And I think that the way that this is proposed to be amended, it does that. What I'm suggesting to all the municipalities, rather than try to identify an arbitrary end date, is that once you know that the governor's orders are lifted, it's safe to resume operations as normal in the township. The following meeting, whatever opportunity you have at the next public meeting, you could officially terminate your declaration and agree that activities will resume as normal. So I think the way that Casey has this drafted is appropriate, and it's consistent with the law, and it's consistent with the way a lot of other municipalities within Chester County are handling this.
I'd like to make a motion that we ratify.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have public comment?
Doug White here. I'm in agreement. Thank you.
Thank you for your very short, curt, and exact comments. Are there any other individuals who would like to have a public comment on the extension of the declaration of disaster emergency?
Yeah, this is John Holman, the Board of Supervisors. Casey or Kristen, could you explain briefly what it means when we have this disaster declaration regarding any expenses that are occurred or accrued during this period that are directly related to the disaster? Does it open up avenues for reimbursement? Could you explain that?
Yeah, since I've been in municipal government for 20 years, I've probably done maybe a half a dozen or more disaster declarations they've typically used, obviously this crisis is unprecedented in our lifetimes and beyond. So they're typically used for blizzards or natural disasters, but it allows the township to apply for 75% reimbursement for applicable expenses, such as overtime. We have had to purchase personal protective gear that we did not have before. All those expenses can be applied to PEMA and FEMA, Pennsylvania Emergency Management and Federal Emergency Management, for reimbursement. So that is why Andrea Testa so quickly wanted to get that around to the board mid-March. So anything that we had to purchase, immediately could be applied for reimbursement. So that's the main purpose for the township. But also, if we have an emergency, we don't have to go through a normal bidding process. If we need a piece of equipment, or we have an emergency repair of, again, a culvert or something that got destroyed during a hurricane, we could just get it fixed without going through normal bidding, because normal bidding takes, 45, 60 days to do. So those are the two main issues. Kristen, did you want to add anything, or?
No, you touched upon the most important reasons. The public procurement and making sure you don't have to follow those laws it's important to have this disaster declaration in place.
Okay,
And also to clarify, how many other townships in Chester County have also declared disasters? Are you aware?
Yeah, I believe every single one has. There's 73 municipalities. We get the update from Chester County Emergency Management every day, and the list is extensive. I think everybody has done that.
I would concur.
All right, thank you.
okay, if there are no other comments from the public, we have a motion and a second. I'll go ahead and start the roll call. Aye, Robin. John,
Hi, John. John Hellman.
Ashley Gagne, aye.
Sean Walsh,
Hugh,
aye.
Hugh, yes.
very good. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 11, discussion of 2020 Township Park and Recreation Department Summer Camp Program. Is Ken going to speak on this issue?
Yes, Ken Lear is present.
Oh, hi, Ken. Great.
Yes. So right now, basically, I've been on the summer camp committee for the State Park and Recreation Society. And basically, throughout the state, municipalities are in a holding pattern. Everyone's basically waiting to see what kind of guidance we get from the state health department, with a targeted deadline of early May. 86% of the department said that they're looking at May for making a decision. 7% said they're looking at April. 7% said they can look past May. I would say certainly any decisions that would need to be made on our end would have to be made by early May. Tom Steins and I are confident that if we had any kind of modified program, that we could staff 2 parks, probably not 3 parks. But again, I feel like we're not at a stage yet where we have enough information about how to proceed from health departments.
Do you have any insight into families that have continually participated in terms of understanding where their thoughts and minds are with respect to this type of camp again?
We do not have any. We do not have any feedback from any families at this point.
Might be useful to find out what the parents are thinking and as much of what the department's thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Ken, what do you think the process will be to get, what's your thinking around what the process will be for you to come to gather enough information to make a recommendation to the board by, first or second week in May? What's going to be key information you're looking for?
The big thing would be whatever the either Chester County or Pennsylvania State Health Department is able to provide for us in terms of guidance. I'll be honest, I'm a little beyond my level of expertise here when it comes to the sort of best health practices, and I would defer to whatever the state or county would indicate to us.
Mm-hmm. And you said that you would probably reduce the camp sizes down to 2 parks as opposed to 3, which is, I guess, what you use typically?
That's correct. It could be reduced down to 1 or 2, and depending upon what practices are recommended, we could reduce enrollment so that way there are fewer kids per location, break them into smaller groups. Some departments are also looking at starting at a later date in July if it looks like camps will not be ready in June. Again, I would want to consider those possibilities, but we would need to know that by early May.
Well, I think we've got a newsletter coming out shortly. I'm wondering if we can somehow receive some type of feedback from residents who have traditionally relied on summer camp, but to see whether or not they have a likelihood of wanting to send their kids to camp this year, since none of us know how things are going to work out over the next 2 or 3 months to begin with. If you have time to do that, Ken, it might be worthwhile to reach out or put something in the newsletter where people could reply about their interest in participating, thumbs up, thumbs down kind of thing.
We could do targeted polling where we select families that have participated in the past. My only hesitation is I wouldn't want to do a too large general poll and find out that it's something people want that we cannot in turn offer.
Sure. Okay.
Ken, this is Sean again.
Sean.
Yeah, sorry, there's some background noise there. Ken, this is Sean again. So I was curious, given the fact you expect to get clarification by early May, can it wait until the regular scheduled Board of Supervisor meeting for May to make a final decision? Is that too late for you, or would that be okay?
That would probably be pushing the latter deadline. It probably would be okay, but as an absolute drop dead deadline, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so at this moment in time, we will wait to hear from you after you get some insight in May. If you can get that to us as quickly as possible, it would help us decide on whether or not to move forward with the Parks program for this year.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Okay, next item on the agenda, item number 12, Sunoco Stormwater Grants Design Proposals Discussion and Possible Approval. Who is sharing that information with us today?
Rick is going to take that. And this was actually on the March agenda, but we had to cancel. So just push back a month. So turn it over to Rick Gray.
So as a result of fines levied against Sunoco in regard to the pipeline project, DEP decided that they were going to use those fines to institute a grant program for MS4 stormwater projects. So they announced that and opened that up to any township which had the pipeline going through it and had MS4 stormwater requirements could apply for the grants. We did apply for 2 separate grants, and we did receive 2 grants from DEP. The first grant was for the retrofit of 2 basins in the northwestern part of the township, stormwater basins, and that was in the amount of $215,273. The second grant was for riparian buffer restoration on the sewer authority property, and that grant was for $110,142. The grants are unusual in that they are 100% reimbursement grants. Normally there's a match requirement for township funds with grants, but both of these are 100% reimbursement for both design and construction of these 2 projects. Neither of these projects were included in our initial TMDL PRP project list. So these projects are in addition to the projects that will be required for the TMDL PRP projects, but they are both in TMDL watersheds and would benefit our TMDL requirements. So they will be a significant benefit to the township. We've received proposals from HRG consulting engineers to do the design of these projects. And those proposals are the subject of the request for approval tonight by the Board of Supervisors so that we can get started with the design of these projects and then upon design, go to construction.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Hey, Rick.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a question for Rick to start with. Rick, this is Sean. On the scope of work and the projected costs from HRG, for example, the riparian buffer restoration, in their general project description, they mentioned that originally of the $110,000 grant amount, $7,866 was set aside for the services, meaning the design, permitting, and bidding the water quality improvement work. They state that that is an error and that these costs should be of the order of $17,976. But then later on in their actual compensation, they're proposing a fee of $14,750. Could you provide us some clarification on what number we're approving tonight for HRG's services?
I'm on a phone conference. Hi.
I don't have those proposals right in front of me. Do you have them? Sean, I don't have the proposals right in front of me, but if I remember correctly, I did review them and there was a mathematical error, but I believe what we're approving is a $14,000 number. I think they reduced that 17,000 somewhat in their proposal.
This is Hugh. I'd like to make a motion that I would make the motion to approve with the correction that Rick has mentioned.
Yeah, and perhaps, Rick, you can confirm that for us when you have an opportunity tomorrow to let us know exactly.
I'm working on it now. I can probably give you an answer shortly.
That's great. I think we're going to make it.
I would prefer we have a dollar amount known that we're approving tonight for the two projects, the two scopes of work for HRG that we're going to approve.
So Rick, do you want to keep looking at it while we move on with the agenda?
I'm working on it now.
Okay, so why don't we table that for the short term and we'll move on.
Fine.
We're now moving on to item number 13, discussion of possible approval of 2020 pavement markings bid, a joint purchasing program with West Goshen Township, East Goshen Township, Westtown Township, and Euclid Township. Mr. Bartle, going to comment on that?
Yeah, we have Mr. Bertolami and Mr. Woodward available. Mark or Dave, whoever wants to discuss the bid.
Yes, whoever wants to go first would be fine.
It is a group pavement marking bid with other townships, East Goshen, Westtown Township also, and this year we added Euclid Township. It covers all the pavement markings in the township, like our single white lines, our fog lines, our double yellow, our hash marks, our gore marks, our crosswalks, our arrows, our onlys. So we have 34 traffic light intersections in the township, so they all have to be redone. So it's basically we put in an estimate of what needs to be done. So that's it.
Hey, Mark, this is Sean. I have a question or two on this. So it wasn't clear on the information we received what West Goshen's share of the actual bid was, given the fact there are several townships participating in the project. So that was one question. The second question was, did we only receive one bid for this work?
This year we did only receive one bid. And I really won't know what our portion is until after they do the job.
Hey, Sean, this is Dave. We usually go about 45 to 50,000 a year, depending on what we do. It varies what roads we're paving and all that each year.
Okay, Dave, that's we budgeted that amount for this year, and that's roughly what you think our share of this 140,000 will be.
Yeah.
We budgeted 48,000. So in 2017 we paid 41,000. 2018 we paid 47,000, and in 2019 we paid a little bit more than 47,000.
Okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any additional questions from any of the supervisors? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve the paving bid.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, let's open it up for public comment. Lisa, can you tell if anyone has a comment on this issue?
Marge, do you have a question?
Hi, Lisa. Yes, I'm wondering if there's anyone who has public comment on this issue.
Yeah, I was asking Margie if she had a question because her mic's on.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it was Rick's topic, but when we get back to him, I'll ask him. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, is there anybody else on the line who would like to have public comment related to item number 13?
I don't see anybody else.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. We'll have a roll call. I'll go first. Aye. John?
Aye. John Hellman.
Ashley?
Ashley Gagne, aye.
Hugh Purnell?
Yes. Yes.
And Sean?
John Walsh, aye.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Passed unanimously. Okay, Mr. Craig, do you have the documents that you provided to us from HRV? I'm going through them and I'm seeing some of the numbers you stated. Have you been able to find what you were looking for?
Yes, I did confirm that the design proposal for the riparian buffer project is in fact $14,750, not the $17,000 number.
Okay, very good. Was that the only one you needed to review?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So I believe we had a motion and a second already.
We had a motion.
Sean, are you satisfied with what Mr. Craig has shared with you now, with us?
I am for the riparian buffer, but actually, Rick, on the second one or the larger project, the basin retrofits, there's the same confusion where on the front page it mentions a $36,130 number that was set aside for these services, but their compensation again in the detail for them was a different number. I can find it. It was $45,725. So could you confirm which number is applicable to the scope of services for HRG?
Yes, it is $45,725.
Okay. I will second the motion of Mr. Purnell, then Robin, to approve HRG for the scope of work for professional engineering services for these two projects.
Okay, let's open this up to public comment then. Ms. Swart, would you like to speak first?
Yes, I'm wondering if the bid for professional services was put out to bid?
It is not a bid. They are professional services and they are not required to be bid, and they were not bid.
Okay, is there a reason we did not use our consulting engineer that we already have engaged with the township for use in engineering services?
Which consulting engineering firm would that be?
Carroll Engineering?
Carroll Engineering only does roadway projects for the township on a routine basis, roadway and inspection projects. This is a stormwater management design project, and HRG is, in my opinion, more qualified to do that work, and that's why they were selected.
Okay, but is Carroll Engineering doing the North Hills project, stormwater project?
They are doing the North Hills project. That's not a stormwater project. That's a pipe culvert repair project with an emergency spillway for a pond. That's not stormwater.
Okay, and then I just would like to express my concern about moving forward on the two privately owned stormwater basins. I just think that's going to set precedent for any of the other 200 privately owned basins in the township, because what's to stop, another property owner from having issues or overflow with their basin and coming to the township and asking the township to repair their private basin. And I just think it's a bad precedent that we're using, whether it's grant money or taxpayer funded money to improve two basins. So that's all. Thank you.
There is a difference. Ms. Swart alluded to repair. These basins are not being repaired. They're being retrofit to improve their performance. There's quite a bit of difference between the two. And whether this sets a precedent, which it certainly will, in order for us to meet our MS4 stormwater requirements, TMDL and PRP requirements, it will be impossible to do that without doing projects on private property, because we only own 4 out of the 215 stormwater basins in the township. So whether we like it or not, we're going to have to do work on private property or we can't meet our MS4 requirements.
Okay, understood. I just want to put that out there. That is a concern that I have.
Thank you, Ms. Swart. Do we have any other public comment?
Yes, Doug White, public comment, please. On Margie's comment, that's well taken, but I would agree that working on the private basins is okay for the township, because what happens on those private basins can affect the neighbors and the rest of the township. So I'm in agreement. Go ahead, please. Thank you.
Okay, any other comment? Hearing none. We have a motion and a second. I'll start the roll call. Robin, aye.
Ashley Goshen.
Hugh, aye. John?
John Hellman, aye.
And I think I heard Ashley.
Yes, aye.
Thank you. And Sean?
Sean Walsh, aye.
Very good. The ayes have it. Okay, item number 14, discussion and possible approval of temporary construction easements and permanent easements for 2 previously approved emergency stormwater projects. Knollwood Drive Emergency Stormwater Project, Kirkby easement, Marinelli easement, and Fletcher easement. North Hill Emergency Stormwater Project, North Hill Civic Association easement. Ms. Camp, thank you.
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
this is Hugh. I'd like to make a note here that I am on the board of directors of the North Hill Civic Association, and I probably should recuse myself from the North Hill vote.
Thank you for making us aware.
So these projects started a while ago. There is a pipe that failed or is failing underneath
Right.
Knollwood Drive, and it's causing Knollwood Drive to collapse. So Carroll Engineering put together a plan for how to repair that damaged pipe. And in order to do so, they have to slip line the pipe and install concrete end walls on either end of the pipe. And there are various people, three different property owners who are impacted by this work. There are temporary construction easements and permanent easements needed in order to install the concrete end wall and make the repairs to the pipe. Maybe Rick or Casey can speak to the communication that's been had with the property owners, but the way I understand it is obviously they view this as a benefit. They without having the pipe repaired, their road would be damaged, and also potentially their private property would be damaged. So the township taking this on as a pipe within the road will ultimately help their properties, and they've been gracious enough to not require or not request compensation for the easements. Once the work is completed, the temporary construction easement, basically goes away unless we move back in there to perform repairs in the future. But the permanent easements will remain so that these structures can remain on their property, and the township will continue to maintain the facilities that are installed within the easement areas and within the road.
Yeah, Kristen, you've hit everything pretty much on the head. First with Knollwood, it's a 5 or 6 foot diameter pipe. It's corrugated metal, and they fail after about 30 years. If that pipe were to actually fail, the street could collapse, and that's the only way into Knollwood. That we would have a very, very, very expensive emergency repair that would landlock dozens of homes on the rear side of Knollwood. So the 3 property owners were very gracious in granting us those easements for temporary and then an ultimate maintenance right away. For North Hill, similar situation. The outflow pipe for the private lake goes underneath our street, and it was we actually had a partial failure of that pipe, which had to have an emergency repair. So again, North Hill was very gracious in granting us that to rebuild a emergency spillway to get to, so we could get rid of that stormwater pipe that goes under the township. The excess stormwater will then just go underneath the culvert and through the culvert that was replaced back in the early 2000s. Also, as an emergency, that culvert failed, which landlocked the whole North Hill neighborhood back there for a few days. So that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Okay, so
I have a question, Robin, for Dave, or whoever's responsible for the design of the fix for the Knollwood Drive pipe. Dave, still there?
Yeah.
Dave, are the property owners aware of the extent of what is required to put the concrete end pipes on to secure the pipe? Are they aware of what that will look like?
Yeah, we've met with both owners that have property at either end, described it to them, and they know what's coming.
Okay, so they're aware of the visual change that will happen on their property, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Sean, this is Rick Craig. The addition of the concrete head wall and end wall will actually be a visual improvement compared to the raw pipe end that was there before. So it not only serves to protect the pipe in the future, which is beneficial to the township, but it gives a much cleaner appearance to the whole structure, which is of benefit to the property owners.
I agree. I just want to make sure they're aware of what it will look like.
This is Tom Hellman. I just want to follow up that question to Dave. With the township getting these easements, what responsibilities will the township have regarding during the construction period? Will they have to put up fencing or some other way to segregate this area from these properties? What safety precautions need to be taken?
I can jump in real quick because Dave, let me just tell that there's a paragraph in each of the easements that speaks to the township maintaining temporary construction fencing along the perimeter of the temporary easement areas to direct members of the public away from the easement area, and making sure that does not, that people basically can't get into the areas under construction. And then obviously at the end of the construction, we have to fully restore the surface of the ground to substantially its condition prior to disturbance, and then reseed the property with grass, or so that they, making the property whole again, basically, to the extent we can.
Yeah, and that's what we do. If you were up at North Hills, while we were working on the one side, we had safety fence along just to keep people out.
Does it say in these easements how long the construction is going to take at each of the properties?
No,
it does not.
Yeah.
Well, actually, on one of them it does. I think that Kirkby, each property owner had a couple. Some of them might have had minor comments. So on the Kirkby easement, what does it say? The term. Well, I don't know if I have the one that was one of the versions did have a time ending of September 30th, 2020.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, the North Hill project is well underway. It should be done in a couple of weeks, and Knollwood should start in 6 to 8 weeks. And that's only about Dave, maybe a 2 or 3 week long construction project?
Yeah,
4 weeks?
they're saying a 2 to 3 week time frame. The longest part of that project is probably going to be setting the head wall and the end wall.
Right, the concrete, right.
The contractor, we met with him last week or week before, and he's saying 2 weeks to set, or 2 days to set the pipe.
Nice. Yeah, so actually the projects will be done pretty quickly, next couple of months at the most for Knollwood and
Okay.
North Hill in the next 2 weeks or so.
Okay, any other comments, questions before we move on to agree or not agree? For item number 14, I believe we have a motion and a second. No, not yet.
No motions or seconds.
Okay, is there a motion on the floor?
I'll make the motion.
I will make the motion.
All right, I'll second it, whatever.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Mr. Purnell will abstain. I will be the first one on the roll call. Robin, aye.
John Helen, aye.
Ashley,
Aye.
Sean,
John Walsh, aye.
okay. 4 with 1 abstention. Okay, next item, number 15, the approval of the treasurer's report dated March 31st, 2020 for the general fund, the sewer revenue fund, the waste and recycling fund, and the capital reserve fund, and the bills to be paid from these funds.
I'll make a motion that they be approved.
Do I have a second?
I will second the motion. Sean.
Lisa, can you open this up for public comment?
Yes. Marge, you have a question?
Yes, 2 comments, please, or 2 questions. I see we moved the $1.5 million from the sewer fund into the sewer revenue fund, and then it went to the sewer authority fund. I'm just curious as to why it just didn't go directly from the sewer revenue fund straight into the sewer authority.
I'll have to inquire with the finance director. I don't know.
Okay, and then also it from the sewer revenue fund, it was $1.5 million, which transferred into the sewer revenue reserve. But what was transferred over to the sewer authority was just 1.48. So it was, instead of moving 1.5 to sewer authority, we shorted them $20,000. So that's my question on that. And then I had sent an email earlier in the week. I know 2 employees canceled the one conference out west, but it showed that a per diem check was cut to both employees. And I'm just curious as to why they received per diem checks if they didn't make the trip.
We canceled those 2 trips at the very last minute. We'd already cut the per diem checks the week before, 2 weeks before at least. Those checks were returned to the finance department to be voided.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Margie, this is Sean. Just on your first question related to the sewer authority. So I had made the motion back at the budget time to move the 1.48 million to the sewer authority because that was what our estimate was for the interceptor pipe repairs at the time. So the authority had only requested the 1.48. So we've not transferred less than they had asked for.
Okay, yeah, and I understood that was coming right from that one account that we had 1.49 or whatever it was. I just thought we were closing out that fund or that account, and that was all transferring to the sewer authority. So I was curious as to why it went from the sewer revenue account into sewer reserve before it was transferred into sewer authority. So, but Mr. Lala was going to look into it, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
Lisa, do we have anyone else who would like to make public comment?
I don't see anyone else.
I do have one more follow-up. Sorry about that. I forgot it. On page, I think it's page 1 of the sewer fund, it does show the payroll. And again, my concern with that, and I echo your thoughts and feelings, and kudos to our staff. I know we have a great staff. And it's not the staff I ever question, it's just the overall government. So I think they know that. So I appreciate them as much as you do. But the 2 weeks from the payroll from 3/19 to from March 19th to April 2nd, just for the sewer employees was an increase of, looks like about $18,000. So I listened in on the sewer authority meeting a couple weeks ago, and it, was really wise. It sounded like the work shift is broken into 3 teams. So if we have, 2 teams that are off for 2 weeks, and then 1 team works and then has 2 weeks off, how is our payroll actually going up $18,000 when 2/3 of our employees aren't working for 2 weeks? So, and it's just a concern I have what we're doing with payroll during these times. So, thank you.
This is Doug. May I make a comment on that, please?
Yes, please do.
Yes, Margie, it could be accounting for the overall hours that they're working. And maybe there were more hours that they were actually working, and maybe there was some overtime in there. So,
with all due respect, Dr. White, I believe our public comment is to be directed to the board and not to fellow citizens. Thank you.
Well, that's what I was doing, Margie. I'm just making a comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margie, this is Sean. My recollection of the sewer authority meeting was that we talked about the fact that there'd been an emergency repair on that line that failed behind ShopRite that necessitated some overtime work. I forget the actual days that occurred. Now, whether that was the same crew that was on that particular week and therefore wasn't calling in folks who were not on rotation, I don't know. But that was the period when we were trying to initiate the segregation of staff. So my expectation is most of that will be additional hours worked in overtime.
Thank you.
This is John Hellman asking. Casey, do you have any idea at this point from the treasurer's report what expenses could be submitted for reimbursement consideration, and to which agencies could those requests be made?
Certainly, all the it appears that this will follow this pandemic, whatever, will follow suit with other emergencies disasters that have been declared for decades. We've had 3 disasters declared here in my 14 years, 2 because of major blizzards, 2019, 2014, I think. We submitted any and all overtime that was directly associated with bringing in staff or having emergency personnel here, plus any, again, any personal protective equipment that we've had to buy. I mean, we've had to, not a substantial amount of money, but we've had to buy masks. We typically don't wear masks except the sewer department to go in the pump stations and into the headworks. So we've had to buy PPE for virtually every employee here. And going forward, when we do reopen, all of our employees, admin, public works, will have to wear masks pretty much the entire shift, especially if we deal with the public. Any of those costs can be submitted for reimbursement up to 75%. So we're keeping track of everything, including, again, all PPE, hand sanitizer, anything out of the ordinary that we've had to purchase. And again, we're keeping everything within the budget. Nothing has gone outside the bounds of the budget so far. So again, anything extraordinary, obviously this isn't your normal crisis or natural disaster like we've been discussing. So there isn't rental of equipment or 500 tons of salt that we would need to buy for a blizzard. So it's mostly, again, those PPE expenses and overtime due to the pandemic.
Casey, I think you've also shared with us that you're still doing a clean down every day. So we continue, we had the big Belfour decontamination through all the buildings, but we still have expenses primarily for that as well, to have those people serve us with the extra cleaning that's required to keep us safe.
Yeah, initially after the exposure of the 4 police officers on March 11th, I arranged to have Belfour come in and do the 4 police officers visited every single building at the township. So all 4 buildings had to be decontaminated. And we've had to have them back twice because we had incidents, and I'm not getting into specifics, incidents in the police department where we needed to have the vehicles re-decontaminated, re-sanitized, and also inside the police building because of an issue. So those expenses will also be submitted to PEMA and then FEMA for 75% reimbursement. So we're keeping a running log, and all receipts are being kept, obviously, for any expenses.
This is John again, just to follow up with that question. Casey, when will you be in a position to be able to share with us those expenses from this report? Anytime soon?
Yeah, Lisa and Andrea Testa are keeping track, so I can get a report gathered for you in the next couple of days.
Also, can you expand a little bit more? I believe you are putting in a purchase for thermometers. You're going to be establishing a protocol for testing employees' temperatures before they come into work. Could you talk about that a little bit more? And also, just expand just a little bit more. You already have, but expand just a little bit more about what the township is doing to ensure that they have a safe workplace environment for its employees.
Sure. We're following the CDC guidelines to the letter. We kind of fall, well, we do. We fall under the CDC released guidelines maybe 2 weeks ago about large commercial buildings. So we're kind of in the same ballpark as like an Amazon warehouse. We're kind of situated in that institutional frame. So we have 5 days a week, we have our contracted cleaners, not Belfour, but just a cleaning company that we have a contract with. They come in and wipe down all surfaces, all doorknobs, handles, everything on a daily basis. And again, on a more infrequent basis, at the police's request, we have Belfour come in to do sanitizing of police cars because of the people they deal with. So what we're doing with the protocols on having employees return, all employees will have to follow social distancing requirements. All employees will have to wear masks indoors. Especially in admin. They're currently wearing them in public works while they're working. And also we are obviously when the pandemic hit, every single mask, gown, glove went missing across the country. So we've had to put in supply orders with the county, and we have received some gloves, but we've had to order some as well. So the employees in admin will have their temperatures taken each morning when they arrive, and anybody showing any signs of fever or if they feel sick, they're told not to report to begin with. But if they're feeling okay and they come and we take their temperature and it's above, I think 100 or 100.4, they will be turned away and they'll have to go home until they feel better. Because if we start up operations here, and even if we try social distancing here, one person sick will get us all sick. So we would be crippled if one person is sick. So we're doing everything we can per CDC to safeguard the employees and safeguard everybody from everybody else. So that's what we're putting into effect.
All right, thanks.
Any other comments from board members?
Yeah, this is Sean. Casey, could you give us a view as to when you might expect to see, what's the earliest you would expect to see a potential impact to our earned income tax revenue?
Sure, we get those reports from the county approximately 6 to 8 days after the end of the month. So again, the March report we were actually above. We collected over $2 million in earned income, which was above budget. But by about May 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, we will get those reports from the county, and that will be your first real indication of the impact on West Goshen directly, with potential job losses and earned income reductions overall to the township. So I will transmit that right to the board as soon as we get that from the county.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to, oh, excuse me, we need a motion and a second for the treasurer's report.
We had
those,
yeah, that was Hugh and Sean.
Last one? Yeah, Hugh's okay. All right, so we have public comment. Lisa, anyone still available? I'm seeing a couple people, Mr. Smith, Barry Smith, Linda Stout, Timothy Coleman, thank you for joining us today. Captain Stone was on. I don't know if you people are still here, but I can see some of your names. Tina Marie Smith and Henry. Any other questions from the residents for the board to respond to?
Margie?
Okay.
I don't
Your
know.
mic's on?
I lost how to turn my mic on. Am I on now?
You're on. Yeah, you've been on.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
No, whatever I had, I've lost track of it, so.
Bring it for May.
I'll have it.
Okay.
That's all I'm showing.
Okay. All right then. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make it.
Robin,
You make it every month. It's you, Hugh.
I try.
Casey, this is Sean. Casey,
Sean,
did we vote on the treasurer's bill? Paying the bill?
No, I was just about to say.
Yeah,
we
that's
important.
No, we need a vote.
I'll withdraw my motion.
Yeah, right. It was.
Thank you.
We need a vote.
I just want to be on the record that I actually remember that we still hadn't had a motion in a second. I'm usually the one that flies right through these things. All right. Do we have a motion to approve the treasurer's report for March 31st?
I made that motion.
Yep, Hugh and Sean.
Motion.
To change my mind, may I make one quick comment for consideration?
Yeah, let us just get a second in. Do we have a second?
Sean seconded earlier.
Okay. All right.
I
That's
second it.
all right, Margie, your comment.
Would the board consider in the future having the director of finance attend these meetings? Because it's my feeling that the treasurer's report is the only staff report given every month that you vote to approve. And she's the only one that doesn't attend the meetings and give the actual report. And I think it's just very important, especially during these times, that the director of finance be involved in the monthly board meetings. So thank you for your consideration on that.
You're welcome. Thank you for
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Does Linda Stout have a question?
Yeah, I do. Can anybody hear me?
Sure.
Yeah.
Very good.
Okay, I have two questions. We didn't have much snow last year, and I'm just wondering what they are going to do with the funds. Are they going to hold them to them for next year, or are they going to be used for something else due to this epidemic? That's my first question.
Sure. So the budget for snow removal for 2020, so it goes January 1 through December 31st, 2020. We used about $28,000 of that, mostly to buy salt to replenish us from last year. That money remains in reserve for the board to see fit. Again, we have about just over $200,000 of reserve in that individual fund inside the general fund. So it's up to the board what to do with that money. I would suggest it should be used as a bulwark against reduction in earned income tax.
Right.
So we really won't expend that money, but just caution, if typically we don't have bad Novembers or Decembers here for winter weather, but if we do have some crazy, winter event at the end of this year, then that money would have been used for that. So it's just we just have to be careful with our expenditures. That's all. That's pretty much the answer.
Okay, and the other question I'm wondering for the school taxes this year, we usually get an increase every year. I'm wondering either if it's going to be an increase for the real estate school taxes that are due in August, or if it's going to be a later date that they're due for people that are out of work.
We don't do the school taxes. That's the school district. We have nothing to do with that.
I mean, like the regular, like real estate tax. That's what I meant, like the regular taxes that we get every year.
Well, you have county tax, you have school district tax, and you have township tax.
Right,
We're
right.
responsible for township.
The rest of the taxes that are due for the rest of the year. Because I came into the meeting late, so I'm wondering, are they going to go up or stay the same, the taxes that are still due, or is it going to be a later date?
You'd have to
We have no idea.
work through the school district to find out that information. You should have it on your tax bill, I'm assuming right now.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think
okay.
that,
All the taxes that are due for West Goshen as of now are paid.
those are just your township real estate taxes. That's all. We don't do the county tax or the school district tax.
Yeah, I don't
I'm sorry, Linda. I think she said she came late. We actually addressed this at the beginning of the meeting when we were talking
I
about.
came in late, so I don't know. What tax is still due? Is it going to be late?
I think that we decided to pull that until the May meeting when that decision is due May 20th. I think our meeting is the 19th.
Okay,
And
so you'll find out then if they're due on time, if they're going to be a later payment.
one of the options was, I think, as Casey said, to defer the period where you could get the discount to August, and then to defer all payments until December 31st. So that's going to be something that we'll be voting on next.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
This is Sean. Just for the board's consideration, I've had a further reflection on this real estate tax issue. And if we don't take any action tonight and wait until May, anyone theoretically paying their taxes the first week in May would be paying the face value, because right now, the discount expires at the end of this month. So we have to be careful where people aren't paying their taxes in full the first 2 weeks in May, and then in the third week in May, we're then suggesting they could have waited.
So we would have to vote to defer that savings period until August, or it's not automatically deferred till August? We'd have to make that.
Right now, someone who doesn't know about this deliberation would pay the face value in the full amount without the discount if they paid it in May. If we then take action in May to say, well, we would extend the discount, they would have already paid the full value and wouldn't have been, if they'd have waited, they would have been potentially able to pay less. So I think we have to consider tonight whether we're willing to extend this discount or not, at least.
No,
in May?
Sean and the board, I actually disagree with that. The tax collector can issue a refund check for that portion. We're not going to get that many payments of people who pay the face amount before you take action. So the tax collector can issue a refund payment for that, for the separate, and a 2% payment on it's a $300 payment. It's easily reimbursed through a check back to the homeowner.
Casey, couldn't it also be credited towards next year?
Could be.
It's not going to be that significant of an amount.
Yeah, that could be the
towards
board's
next year
discretion.
taxes.
Right.
Okay.
I'd like to recommend that 2 supervisors meet with the finance department and talk and work through what options are available to us. If 70% of the folks are still potentially going to be paying in through April 30th, it'd be helpful to see what's outstanding. And we talked about deferring fees, but I'm at the point right now where I'm not certain that I would defer 100%.
You can't do you?
But we could just defer this. So are there 2 supervisors who would be willing to meet with staff and walk through that with the financials that they have available, and perhaps even get Mr. Keenan in on the conversation?
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that.
Okay. Anyone else?
I can do it, Robin.
It's up to everybody, but I'm willing to. Yeah, I mean, it's,
All right, well, why don't John and Sean go forward with that, and then give us some feedback in terms of what you're learning, and we can start building that into making a decision in May.
Okay.
Thank you.
All righty.
Good.
Are we going to take a vote on the treasurer's report, or?
Well, we had a little bit of a confusion when we decided that we were going to adjourn the meeting, when we still had people who wanted to make comment. So let's finish the business of approving the treasurer's report. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any commentary, public comment on the budget?
Enough.
All right.
I don't see any more.
Okay, hearing none. All in favor? I'll be the beginning of the roll call. Robin says aye.
John Hammond says aye.
Ashley Gagne, aye.
Q, I.
Sean Walsh, aye.
Well done. Thank you. Okay, so we don't have any other public comment? Okay, I
Make
think
a motion.
Yeah, I don't
I'll
see
make
any.
the motion to adjourn.
motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye.
Second.
Aye.
All right, good night, everybody. Thank you so much
Okay.
for all your cooperation, everyone who's been on the phone for the last hour and 40 minutes. We really appreciate you moving forward with our rules and how we conducted ourselves. And if you have any follow-up questions, you're welcome to contact any one of us. I just have one last statement I want to make. We gave a lot of recognition to the employees, but I think one of the other aspects of why our township works so well, that we have outstanding department heads who came together very quickly, working with Casey to sort out how they would conduct business in a way that not only maintained the integrity of our responsibilities, but also maintained an environment where people could come to work and feel as though they were safe. And I want to thank Casey and your leadership group of department heads for moving these processes forward. And luckily I think we've had a couple of different scares of people possibly getting sick, but so far we haven't had anybody in the township staff get sick.
Yeah, that's true. We've had 11 of the 100 or so employees exposed. And again, thankfully, knock on wood, no one has gotten sick.
Yeah, well, thank you for making sure that doesn't happen. A lot of pressure on you. All right, thanks again. Good night, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Night.
Good night.